Hi guys, today I wanted to give an update on my Sailor Pro Gear Slim. I am absolutely in love with this beauty. Unfortunately, the lighting isn't great right now, so I can't really show just how beautiful this pen is, but you can definitely check out my last video where I do some close-ups on this pen. But you can still kind of see in the video that there are some gold flecks in this pen. I think one of the most magnificent things about Sailors are that they're absolutely stunning. I think this is one of the most beautiful fountain pens that I've ever laid my eyes on, and Sailor is constantly pumping out special editions, limited editions, and just more and more new designs. So I think that's something very special about Sailor as a company. If you want some more general stats about this fountain pen, you can check out my last review on this fountain pen. But I just wanted to share some more thoughts about this pen since I have been using it for quite a while now. Something that I didn't discover about this pen until fairly recently, or at least after I filmed my last video, is that there have been some cases of the pen body cracking, the acrylic cracking, and I don't know if I find that acceptable with a pen of this price. I understand that this is made out of plastic, it's an acrylic pen, so it is prone to cracking or breaking, but with an $180 price tag, I think that this pen should be able to last for years and years. I do have to say, irregardless of that, people still buy them and enjoy them, mostly for the nib. And I completely sympathize with that because, to be honest, I was very swayed to buy this pen because of its aesthetic, because of its beauty. But I think that's something that should be talked more about when talking about this pen, because I've heard from multiple sources that after a few years, the body begins to break, namely in this section in the nib area. So right here where these threads are, and over here where the nib and the feed connect to the body of the pen. So I think I've heard some sources say that the pen was practically rendered useless because of this section cracking, so the ink would leak out whenever they tried to ink and use the pen. Hearing this information is very upsetting to me because the most important thing of a high-end pen, I think, should be the long-lasting and the quality of the pen. I have to say though, this material feels very, very luxurious and very high quality. I'm not completely sure. I haven't been using fountain pens for years and years, so I can't really say if any of my other plastic fountain pens have had similar issues. So I don't know if this is something that is very common no matter what the brand or model of it is. But the thing is, I haven't really heard this about other Pilot or Platinum pens to compare Japanese pens, Japanese higher end pens. But I have heard this about the TWSBI Eco that is also made out of an acrylic body, and I've heard many people saying that the body cracks. I had to dig pretty deep to find out that the body of this pen cracks, so I just wanted to share that with you guys in case you've also haven't heard. So I have had this for a few months now, and I have been taking care of this very well. I will store this back in a box right after I use it. From what I can tell, there aren't even any micro scratches at all. That's definitely a plus for me. So it does seem like the acrylic is fairly durable, because I feel that plastic can be scratched very easily. But to me, this pen still looks completely flawless. Now on to the actual usability of the pen. So the threads obviously are flawless and impeccably smooth, but something that I would like to note is this converter. Sailor converters are notorious for being very user unfriendly and quite annoying. And I never really knew why until I started to use it. This converter is very, very difficult to draw ink with. Let's say I dip the nib into a ink bottle and I twist this converter to try to draw it up. It is so difficult to turn this knob to actually draw up the ink. I don't know why that is. I don't know why it's so tight. And I really don't understand that aspect because, for example, this is a $2 to $3 pen that I purchased off of AliExpress. And this converter works so much better than the Sailor one. So I really don't think they have an excuse. I think the technology is there for it to be very user-friendly. I don't know if it's maybe because of the nib and feed. That is definitely a possibility. This Sailor pen has a very large feed compared to almost all of my other fountain pens. So I don't know if maybe that has something to do with it being very hard to draw up the ink. But that is something that I have noticed with this pen that irks me just a little bit, because I don't know if you're the same as me, but part of what I love about fountain pens so much is the process of drawing new inks. I think it's a very calming process to clean my pens and to re-ink them. Honestly, that aspect just takes a little bit of the joy out of it for me. It's really not that big of a deal, but once again, it is almost a $200 pen. So I feel like that is something that should have been changed or should be improved. So honestly, I don't even want to deal with that aspect. So instead of actually filling it from the feed and the nib, I actually will take a dropper and fill the converter separately and then place it into the pen. And because you do that, then the feed isn't primed. So then I have to prime the feed by twisting down the converter. And that's another thing with this pen. This pen takes a lot to be primed. And I'm kind of just finding very little gripes with this pen right now, but I just think it's kind of important to note because I've never heard anyone really talking about this in their reviews. So I just wanted to point it out because I think it's something that's important to note, especially if this is your grail pen and you're really saving up to buy this pen, because that's kind of the case that I was in. And I don't know why no one has ever noted any of these things, because I looked through almost every single review on this pen before purchasing it because it was a big investment for me. And I just want to let everyone know I just want to let people know that are in the same boat as me everything that I can about this pen before they decide to purchase it on their own. You'll just have to take my word for it. For example, with the Hongdian Black Forest, that one is the same as basically any of my other pens. Once you prime the feed just a tiny little bit, it will be very, very inky. And the same with my other AliExpress fountain pen, that's $3. It's the same thing. You slightly twist down the converter and it's very, very inky. But for this pen, let's see if I can show it really quickly. So I'll just scribble some things right now. And if I twist my converter down, it's exactly the same. It would be much better to show you if I didn't have this pen inked and I inked it up for you and showed you how long it took for me to actually prime the nib and feed before this pen would actually write. I have to twist it down like almost halfway of what you can see for the ink to actually start coming out. And even though you can see the ink start to bubble in the nib and feed, when I try to write with it, it wouldn't come out. I don't know if that's because I have dud or the tines of this pen are too tight. I don't really know if it's just my pen because this is the only Sailor that I have, but that's another issue that I've seen when using this pen. And the other thing about this converter is that it's so tiny. When writing with this pen for, let's say, a 2-hour-long writing session, you'll basically have to change your ink the next day. It is a little bit longer than you see right here. It practically goes all the way down here, but it is a pretty small ink capacity, for me at least. I know that's why people buy piston filler pens, because they want a larger ink capacity, and you don't really expect that much out of this type of pen, but that's just something that I've noticed as well. And to me, I don't know if I just write with this more. I haven't actually counted the number of lines that this converter can write, but to me, it seems like there's a shorter writing capacity with this pen rather than my other pens that have the same kind of converter mechanism. So that is another thing I have with this pen. But that's honestly all of the cons that I have about this pen. They're honestly very, very small cons compared to the actual writing experience of this pen. I think you buy this pen for the luxury and the aesthetic on top of the nib, and in my opinion, I don't think any company does that better than Sailor. I think Sailor creates the most aesthetically appealing pens that I've ever laid my eyes on, to be completely honest. Other than maybe some Maki-E pens. But as a general line basis, I think the Sailors are the most beautiful pens, especially with all of these special editions. But let's talk about the most important part, shall we? The nib. It is so incredibly amazing. The nib is absolutely stunning. I think it has smoothed out a little bit just from me writing. I think the gold nibs are a little bit softer than steel nibs, so they kind of smooth out a little bit faster than steel nibs would, and they conform to your writing style really quickly. So I don't know if you can hear that, but that's the feedback on the pen. I'll stop talking and scribble a little bit more. So this line was me scribbling with some pressure, honestly, and this line was me scribbling without pressure. So if you can hear the difference between my review video and this video, you can hear that the nib has actually gotten smoother, and I really love the fact that this kind of conforms to your writing style. I think that's actually really incredible, and this is a really, really cheap paper that also has some grit to it. So I think the fact that it writes this well, even on cheap paper, is quite incredible. But of course, writing on better paper makes this pen really, really an impeccable writing experience. It's really, really incredible. The thing is though, don't buy this pen if you're looking for a gold nib with some flex to it. I think their 21 karat nibs do have a tiny bit of flex to them, but this nib is labeled as a hard medium fine. So it is not gonna have any sort of flex to it when you're writing at all. You can kind of try to push it, but that's not what this nib is made for, so I definitely wouldn't recommend that unless you want to damage your pen, because that could definitely happen if you push this. Honestly, I would say that this is my favorite pen out of my entire collection, which is kind of to be expected because it's also my most expensive pen. Even if I didn't buy this with my own money and I didn't know it was this expensive of a pen, I would still definitely probably love this the most out of my whole collection. But the thing is, I also think you can just tell that it's very luxurious and expensive just even by looking at it, and definitely by the feel as well. So something that I do want to say also is that it is an incredibly light pen compared to a lot of other pens, but there is some sort of weight to it. You can definitely feel that there's something in your hand and you're writing with it. I think for my tastes, this is probably the most comfortable pen that I've felt for, especially for longer writing sessions, but just in general. It's an incredibly perfect pen for my tastes, to be completely honest. It fits in my hand perfectly. I don't have to cap it, but I do know that some people with larger hands will have to cap it. So that is something that might change with your hand size. The grip section is perfect for my hands as well, but also the weight. The weight is actually incredible for my hands because I can still feel like it's there. It's not like you're writing with a pen like this that's completely all plastic and you can just like, it just feels like a feather and there's no kind of substantial weight to weight down your pen. This feels very, once again, luxurious. I feel like that's the perfect word to describe this pen because this metal section does add some weight to it and it makes it so incredibly balanced and perfect because the weight is exactly where you hold the pen. So it's incredible to me. And strangely enough, actually filling the converter with ink adds some weight to it too, which definitely surprises me because you wouldn't think that that would make a difference, but it does. And it honestly makes it even more pleasant to write with, in my opinion. For me, honestly, it's the perfect writing experience, but I feel like that's very personal because of my hand size, and also it depends on if you like heavier pens or lighter pens. To clarify, this is not a heavy pen by any means, but it feels luxurious in the sense that there's something there. It doesn't feel like a pen made out of all plastic. So all in all, I stand by everything that I said in my last video. There's just some more things that I noticed with this pen since I've been using it more. And that's all I wanted to share. Once again, I love this pen, no matter all of the gripes that I have. All the gripes that I have are pretty small things. I'm just being picky because it is a pretty expensive pen, to me at least. But that's all I basically had to say. The only thing that's not a small gripe for me is if this pen cracks. So I don't know if maybe people are too harsh with it, but then again, I don't really think we can blame the consumers for this because there's multiple sources of people who have been using fountain pens for ages and it cracks. So for me, I've been trying to not screw it on super tight, and I've been trying to be just the most delicate as I can. So I will definitely be updating you guys on whether my pen has any issues, but so far it's absolutely flawless. But that's to be expected because I've only had it for a couple of months. But anyways, that is the end of the Sailor Pro Gear Slim update. So I hope that this helped you out a little bit. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye.